In the world of international politics, the word genocide is a heavy accusation that cannot be taken lightly. It's a term that rings with the echoes of humanity's darkest hours, reserved for the most severe and systematic acts of violence. Recently, this term has been brought to the forefront of global discourse as South Africa has accused Israel of genocide at the International Court of Justice. In a move that has drawn the attention of the world, South Africa has filed a case against Israel, accusing it of genocide in its military campaign on Gaza. In this application, South Africa cites alleged violations of the Genocide Convention, a treaty that defines genocide and sets out the responsibilities of nations to prevent and punish such acts. The Genocide Convention, signed in the wake of World War II, was a response to the atrocities committed during the Holocaust. It was the world's pledge that such horrors would never happen again. Today, its principles are being invoked as South Africa claims that Israel's acts and omissions in Gaza are genocidal in character. But what does this mean for Israel and for the wider international community? The International Court of Justice, often referred to as the World Court, is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. It's the court where nations can bring disputes, where legal questions can be addressed, and where the principles of international law are interpreted and applied. The court's role in this case is to determine whether Israel has indeed violated the Genocide Convention. If found guilty, Israel could face severe international criticism and possible sanctions. However, the court's decision is not enforceable and relies heavily on the political will of the international community to uphold. This case has sparked a global conversation about the conflict, the use of force, and the responsibilities of nations under international law. Debates rage in the streets, in the courtrooms, and in the digital sphere. As the world watches, the accusations have sparked a global conversation about the conflict and the use of force. This is not just a case about Israel and South Africa, but a moment of reckoning for the international community and the principles it upholds. The outcome of this case could have far-reaching implications for the future of international law and the pursuit of justice. In the midst of political turmoil and accusations, the human cost of the conflict is often overlooked. When nations clash on the battlefield, the scars of war are etched not only on the land, but also on the hearts and lives of those who call it home. The conflict between Israel and Gaza has taken a devastating toll on civilians. The numbers speak volumes. The conflict has resulted in the deaths of 168 Israeli soldiers and over 20,000 Palestinians. Behind these numbers are individual stories of loss, grief, and resilience. A significant proportion of those affected are women and children. The vulnerable are often the most affected by the ravages of war. The innocence of childhood is shattered by the harsh reality of conflict, and the nurturing environment of home is replaced by the chilling uncertainty of a war zone. In London, the plight of children in Gaza was symbolized by a puppet named Little Amal during a pro-Palestinian march. This symbol serves as a stark reminder that nearly two-thirds of the casualties in Israel's campaign in Gaza have been women and children. South Africa, in its case against Israel, condemned not only Israel but also Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups for taking hostages and targeting civilians. This highlights that the human cost of conflict is not one-sided. Civilians on both sides of the divide bear the brunt of the violence. As we delve into the impact of this conflict, it's crucial to remember that each statistic represents a life cut short, a family torn apart, a future stolen. Each casualty is a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict, a cost that extends beyond the battlefield and into the homes and hearts of those affected. In a war where no one is winning, the biggest losers are often the innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. The true cost of conflict is measured not in military victories or political gains, but in human lives and the scars they leave behind. The accusations of genocide have not only sparked a legal battle, but also ignited protests around the globe. In the heart of these protests are cities like London and Washington, as well as others scattered across Europe. Thousands of demonstrators have rallied together, their voices echoing the same sentiment, a demand for justice and peace. In London, a sea of pro-Palestinian demonstrators marched, their path paved with messages of support and solidarity. Among the crowd, children joined in the call for justice, their presence a stark reminder of the vulnerable lives caught in the crossfire of conflict. Across the pond, Washington saw a similar scene. Protesters questioned the U.S.'s support for Israel, their signs accusing the president of having blood on his hands. Vendors sold South African flags, symbolizing the country's bold accusations against Israel. The message was clear: The people were questioning their government's involvement in continual war and the value of their vote in such matters. Simultaneously, other European cities like Paris, Rome, Milan, and Dublin also witnessed similar demonstrations, each adding to the growing chorus of dissent. But these protests are not just about voicing discontent. They are also about reactions, about how authorities respond to their people's demand for justice. In London, the march was accompanied by a large police presence, a testament to the tension that these issues bring to the surface. A pro-Israel rally was planned for the day after, showing the diversity of opinions and the complexity of the situation. As the world takes to the streets, it is clear that this issue has far-reaching impact beyond the borders of South Africa and Israel. These protests are not just about one country accusing another. They are a global call for justice, a plea for peace, and a testament to the power of collective action. The world is watching, waiting, and hoping for a resolution that brings an end to the suffering. The International Court of Justice, often referred to as the World Court, is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. Nestled in the heart of The Hague, this court plays an indispensable role in maintaining peace and order in our global society. Its mission is twofold: to settle legal disputes submitted by states in accordance with international law, and to give advisory opinions on legal questions referred to it by authorized United Nations organs and specialized agencies. The ICJ is not a court of last resort. Its judgments are binding and cannot be appealed. The ICJ's jurisdiction is vast, covering a wide array of legal disputes between states. These range from territorial disputes and maritime boundaries to diplomatic relations and human rights violations. The court also deals with cases related to international humanitarian law, a body of rules that seeks to limit the effects of armed conflict. The types of cases the ICJ hears are diverse. For instance, it has ruled on cases related to environmental harm, the use of force, and even genocide. The latter is particularly relevant today, as South Africa has accused Israel of genocide in its military campaign on Gaza, a case that is now before the court. The ICJ's role is not just to pass judgment, but also to interpret international law. It seeks to clarify the often murky waters of international legal principles and treaties. These rulings can have far-reaching implications, shaping international relations and influencing the behavior of states. The court's 15 judges, each from a different nation, are elected by the United Nations General Assembly and Security Council for 9-year terms. They represent the world's main forms of civilization and principal legal systems, ensuring a diversity of perspectives on the bench. In a world where conflicts between nations can quickly escalate, the International Court of Justice plays a crucial role in resolving disputes peacefully and legally. Its mandate to uphold international law is a testament to humanity's shared desire for justice and peace. As the case unfolds, the world is reminded of the importance of international law and the role of the ICJ in maintaining global justice. The case against Israel is centered around the 1948 Genocide Convention, a document both South Africa and Israel have signed. This convention, drafted in the aftermath of World War II, was designed to prevent and punish the crime of genocide. South Africa's case against Israel is anchored on alleged violations of this convention. The heart of the accusation is that Israel's military campaign in Gaza constitutes genocide. The specific acts and omissions cited by South Africa as evidence of genocide are numerous and grave. The military campaign in Gaza, according to the South African government, has resulted in the deaths of over 20,000 Palestinians and 168 Israeli soldiers. The scale of the loss, the intensity of the violence, and the character of the devastation, South Africa argues, are indicative of genocidal intent. The case also points to the disproportionate number of women and children among the casualties. Nearly 2/3 of those killed in the conflict have been women and children, a statistic that South Africa suggests is evidence of a deliberate targeting of the most vulnerable. The application by South Africa goes further to accuse Israel of acts and omissions that are genocidal in character. This includes not only the direct acts of violence, but also the conditions created by the conflict, which have led to widespread suffering and death. South Africa's case also condemns Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups for taking hostages and targeting civilians, acknowledging that the conflict is not one-sided. However, the focus of the case is squarely on Israel's actions and the consequences of its military campaign in Gaza. The severity of the accusations against Israel is undeniable. The label of genocide is not lightly applied, and if proven, could have far-reaching implications for Israel on the global stage. However, it is important to remember that accusations are not the same as proven guilt. The International Court of Justice is the forum where these accusations will be examined, debated, and ultimately judged. It is a court that has the power to hold nations accountable for their actions. It is a court that can, if the evidence supports it, label acts as genocide and hold those responsible to account. While the accusations are severe, it is ultimately up to the ICJ to determine the validity of South Africa's claims. This case, like all before it, will be decided on the merits of the evidence and the strength of the arguments presented. It is a process that demands patience, diligence, and a commitment to justice. In response to the accusations, Israel has vehemently denied any wrongdoing. This firm rejection of the charges is a key element of Israel's response to the accusations made by South Africa. Israel's stance is clear and unequivocal. These allegations are not only untrue, but are also a gross misrepresentation of the situation on the ground. The Israeli government labels these accusations as a blood libel, a term with historical significance. Historically, this term refers to a false accusation, usually against Jews, of murdering Christian children to use their blood in religious rituals. By using this term, Israel is not only denying the allegations, but also emphasizing the perceived malicious intent behind them. Israel, in its defense, points out the complexity of the conflict. They highlight the role of Hamas and other Palestinian armed groups who, according to Israel, have taken hostages and targeted civilians. The Israeli government argues that its military actions are a necessary response to these threats, aimed at ensuring the safety and security of its citizens. Furthermore, Israel disputes the characterization of its actions as genocidal. To be classified as genocide under international law, there must be proven intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group. Israel maintains that its military operations are directed against hostile entities and not against the Palestinian people as a whole. Nevertheless, the fact remains that these operations have resulted in a substantial number of casualties. The conflict has led to the deaths of 168 Israeli soldiers and over 20,000 Palestinians, with many more injured. These figures are a stark reminder of the brutal reality of the conflict and the urgent need for a peaceful resolution. As Israel prepares its defense, the world waits to see how this legal battle will unfold. The outcome of this case could have far-reaching implications, not just for Israel and South Africa, but for the international community as a whole. As we continue to watch this story unfold, one thing is certain: the quest for justice and peace in the Middle East remains as urgent as ever. As the case continues, the impact is felt not just in South Africa and Israel, but around the globe. Conflicts, as we all know, don't respect borders. They ripple out, affecting nations near and far. This case is no exception. The allegations brought forward by South Africa against Israel have sparked a global conversation on the nature of warfare, the protection of civilians, and the role of international law. The demonstrations in major cities like London, Washington, Paris, Rome, Milan, and Dublin underscore the fact that this is a global issue, one that resonates with people from all walks of life. The accusation of genocide is a heavy one, and it's not taken lightly by the international community. What's more, this case could set a precedent for how international law is applied in the future. The International Court of Justice has never held a state responsible for genocide before. Should this change with Israel, it could have serious implications for how conflicts are handled moving forward. This could influence not only the Israel-Palestine conflict, but also other conflicts around the world. The case also has the potential to reshape international relations. Countries around the globe are watching closely, evaluating their own alliances and their positions on the international stage. This isn't just about South Africa and Israel, it's about the entire global community. In addition, the case is prompting people everywhere to question their government's involvement in foreign conflicts. It's sparking a global dialogue on the importance of accountability in warfare and the necessity of protecting civilians, especially the most vulnerable ones, women and children. In a world that is more connected than ever, the outcome of this case could have far-reaching implications for international law and global justice. It's a testament to the interconnectedness of our world, and a reminder that justice is a global responsibility.